Bapak dan Ibu bisa bisa klik bagian more di layar masing-masing, lalu interpretation itu diklik, pilih bahasa Indonesia. Sudahkah? Dr. Altuna, for technical support in this meeting, we are using live interpretations, and so we have a interpreter that will speak directly to them in bahasa Indonesia. So you can say in bahasa in English, and then while it is a turn for another speaker to speak in English, the interpreter will speak in English for you. And have you activated the interpretations menu on your Zoom?
No,
Satu hari aja.
that will be the first time. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so you could click on the more button right
Yep.
at the bottom right, and then interpretations, click English.
Makasih.
Okay.
Bapak dan Ibu semuanya sudah ngeklik yang bahasa Indonesia di kolom more interpretation?
Sudah Pak.
Oke, bagian penerjemahnya bisa tes suara dulu.
Yep.
Recording in progress.
Perfectly.
Oke, penerjemahnya dari G-Select sudah adakah di sini?
Sabi tadi nongkrong. Benar. Siapa?
Ya foto.
Siapa? Oh.
Okay. Dr. Altuna, can you hear us?
Yep, perfectly.
In English interpretations, you heard the English versions of the interpreter,
Yes,
ya?
I
Okay.
did.
Mungkin kita bisa langsung mulai kan, Bapak dan Ibu ya? Baik, izin Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semuanya. Yang kami hormati narasumber, para penanggap, para peserta diskusi, serta seluruh hadirin yang bergabung dengan secara daring pada siang hari ini. Perkenalkan, nama saya Khairul Anam, saya dari Rumah Wasatia, dan acara kali ini, siang ini, sebenarnya adalah bagian dari ruang diskusi, terutama untuk melihat update perkembangan terorisme. Pertama-tama, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kita tentu perlu memanjatkan puja dan puji syukur kehadirat Allah SWT karena kita akhirnya bisa melaksanakan kegiatan ini. Kita juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh peserta yang telah meluangkan waktu untuk hadir dan mengikuti forum ini. Sebelum memulai acara, izinkan saya menyampaikan sedikit informasi. Bapak dan Ibu, perkembangan teknologi digital telah mengubah pola penyebaran propaganda dan komunikasi kelompok ekstremis secara sangat cepat. Narasi ekstremisme saat ini tidak lagi berkembang hanya melalui media konvensional atau jaringan tertutup seperti yang sudah kita tahu, tapi juga melalui media sosial, komunitas daring, budaya digital, hingga berbagai bentuk komunikasi visual berkembang. Nah, dalam konteks tersebut, pemahaman terhadap bagaimana narasi ekstremisme dibangun, disebarkan, dan berevolusi menjadi sangat penting. Karenanya, karenanya kita beruntung karena salah satu inisiatif yang memberikan kontribusi penting di bidang ini adalah proyek yang dipimpin oleh Pak Sergio Altuna. Beliau adalah Pak Sergio Altuna ini adalah Senior Research Fellow pada program on Extremism dari George Washington University. Sekaligus beliau adalah Project Lead dari Titan Project. Nah, beliau banyak melakukan penelitian mengenai propaganda jihadisme, strategi komunikasi kelompok ekstrim, serta perkembangan narasi ekstremisme transnasional di era digital. Di diskusi kali ini, selain nanti kita akan mendengarkan paparan utama dari Dr. Sergio Altuna, diskusi hari ini juga akan diperkaya oleh dua penanggap yang memiliki pengalaman dan perspektif yang sangat penting dalam memahami dinamika ekstremisme. Penanggap yang pertama adalah Ustadz Parwijayanto. Beliau adalah mantan Amir Jemaah Islamiyah. Saat ini aktif dalam berbagai forum dialog, edukasi, dan penguatan pemahaman keagamaan yang damai dan konstruktif. Yang kedua adalah Dr. Wahid Ridwan. Eh, Beliau aktif di bidang kerjasama internasional PP Muhammadiyah, memiliki perhatian besar terhadap isu perdamaian, kerjasama lintas negara, serta penguatan nilai-nilai Islam moderat. Kami percaya kombinasi perspektif ini eh, akan memperkaya diskusi kita hari ini. Bapak dan Ibu, selama diskusi berlangsung, mohon semua mic-nya di mute atau dimatikan. Kita akan memberi waktu mungkin 20 menit kepada Dr. Altuna. Cukup ya, Pak Altuna ya, 20 menit.
I think I can do it in 20 minutes. The initial idea I had was to
Ya.
briefly introduce you to Titan and how it works, and then show you a bit the potential, the possibilities that it has, sharing with you some of the insights from some published and unpublished pieces for you to have a grasp of what technology can nowadays do.
Anda bisa 20 menit jika itu maksimal. Jika merasa bisa lebih cepat, mungkin di 15 menit juga tidak apa-apa. Nanti kita bisa menggunakan waktunya lebih banyak untuk berdiskusi dengan para peserta. Berikutnya, nanti untuk kepada para penanggap, Anda akan memiliki waktu masing-masing 10 menit untuk memberikan tanggapan atau menyampaikan pendapat. Saya kira begitu sebagai pembuka, Bapak dan Ibu. Sekali lagi terima kasih dan tanpa membuang lebih banyak waktu, mohon izin kami persilakan kepada Dr. Sergio Altuna untuk memberikan paparan di diskusi siang ini. Silakan.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد على مسائكم وشكرا لحضوركم ولقبول هذه الدعوة. I do not forget that Eid is right round the corner. So let me also wish you a very happy Eid celebration. Eid Mubarak Saeed للناس الكل ولإندونيسيا أجمعها. Thank you for the warm welcome. I can see there is really a lot of people, and that really turns me very happy. It is really a pleasure to present to you the Titan project. And I really like to extend a very sincere thanks to the Counterterrorism Special Detachment 88 of the National Police of Indonesia, also the Indonesian Counterterrorism Agency, and Rumah Wasatiyah for their hospitality. And also a very special thank you to Mrs. Irma Rahim for her invaluable effort in making this event possible and coordinating and linking through us. Let me share my screen, lest I forget. So, okay. 1 second. Yeah, this should be it. Now you can see the presentation, right? Can you confirm that? Let me check all that. Okay. Well, I'll try to stick to time. So just basically over the last 2 decades, and by the way, least I forget, let me acknowledge the valuable help of interpreting services. I'll try to speak slow and pronounce well so everybody can get the most out of the presentation. Thank you very much for your highly appreciated service. I was saying that over the last 2 decades, jihadist organizations have demonstrated extraordinary capacity for adaptation, which is a quality they're very well known for. We tend to focus on operational adaptations, changes in tactics, in organizational structures, territorial control. But adaptation also takes place at another level, which is the discursive level, propaganda level, narratives. And in many ways, this level is just as important, if not more, because narratives are not just decoration. They're not just secondary outputs. They're where strategic priorities are articulated. Narratives are indeed where legitimacy is constructed and contested. It is where the enemies are defined and hierarchized. And narratives are also where violence is justified, normalized, and individuals and communities can be mobilized. So if you want to understand where these groups, and I'm talking, of course, about global jihadists, are heading, we cannot look away at how they communicate. We must examine how they do it, and there is a very practical reason for this. Strategic shifts often appear in language before they appear in operations. Changes in emphasis and tone or enemy prioritization frequently precede shifts in targeting patterns, in recruitment strategies, in mobilization pathways. Language, propaganda is often the first place where internal debates surface, where recalibration becomes visible, and where strategic directions are articulated. And yet, despite this importance, despite this centrality, the way we've studied communication still presents structural limitations. Most of what we know about jihadist discourse comes from mostly qualitative scholarship, which is okay. I mean, that work has been indispensable, really high quality in some cases. However, it relies mostly on small samples, on materials that have been translated or outputs specifically tailored to Western audiences. And it is worth recalling also that a very critical point, which is that Arabic is not only the primary language of jihadist propaganda, which amounts, by the way, to around 83% when we talk about global jihadists, but it is also the language in which doctrinal debates are conducted, in which theological disputes are articulated, strategic disagreements are negotiated. So when we analyze only translated products, we miss precisely those internal nuances, those internal discussions that signal their strategic evolution. And this creates like clear blind spots. It becomes difficult to answer key questions like the ones we're going to present today. Let's not forget as well, you're probably familiar with this, that Arabic comes with some technological difficulties. I mean, Latin-based alphabets have developed a lot together with technology, while non-Latin based alphabets remain a little bit behind. To address this systematically, we need scale, we need structure, and we need sustained engagement with Arabic language source material over time. So when we developed Titan as an idea, the objective was not to replace this qualitative expertise, but on the contrary, to reinforce it and to create a base that allows us to move across different levels of analysis, from the macro level perspective, across organizations, down to the micro level evolution of things. So in other words, when created Titan, we aim to treat jihadist discourse not just as a collection of isolated text, but as a structured narrative ecosystem that can be systematically examined and exploited. So what I would like to do now is to move from the problem to the solution, from the structural limitations we've been discussing in Arabic to the analytical architecture designed to address this. So let me start with a very simple question, which is, what is Titan for those of you not familiar with it? So Titan is an innovative research project we've developed here at the Program on Extremism, George Washington University, to systematically analyze the propaganda, the message, the narratives, the discourse, both Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State and their regional branches using corpus linguistics and computational linguistics. I won't go very much in detail into that, but anyway, let me tell you, by the way, I just forgot that Titan is the acronym that stands for Terrorism Insight through the Analysis of Narratives. So this is a project that does not produce anecdote and analysis, but relies on a scientifically grounded, technology-driven approach that produces empirical and reproducible results. So, which is based on a large scale, a big data, let's say, a huge Arabic language corpus, which is monolingual, only in Arabic, diachronic, it goes across time, balanced, and representative of jihadist discourse. Because let's take this as a standpoint. Jihadists do have their own social act. They communicate in a very special, in a very particular way. So the main focus was to understand how jihadist narratives evolve, adapt, and are strategically deployed over time. Which brings me to my next obvious question, which is why studying narratives from corpus linguistics? Because quite simply, narratives are not just decoration; they're doctrine in motion. Corpus linguistics allows us to move beyond impressions and ask questions at scale. Like, for example, what patterns are actually representative, or what changes can we observe empirically over time? Because when I say representative, is this corpus gathers all, and I mean all, audiovisual and texts and images that have been officially published by the main arms of these organizations through time. We haven't yet, of course, covered all years starting since the early 2000s, but we have already compiled and are able to exploit everything from 2016 till today, which is, believe me, a huge amount of materials. So methodologically, sorry, this approach enables us to combine quantitative and qualitative analysis and allows us to expand our understanding of communication strategy, propaganda dynamics, and of course, ideological evolution, which, okay, this has to be translated into how does this work? Okay, of course, we have a very severe, very strict research protocol that goes from setting some compilation criteria, what's official, what's not, when was this published, who published it, is there any sort of debates around the sources? Then, of course, there's a team that double checks everything. As I said, Arabic comes with some challenges, so everything is read, listened to, and reviewed several times by hand and transcribed, because we're talking about translating audio, video, and images into text. And then,
Guys, ada Zoom.
if you please silence some of the mics, because it gets through my audio and it's a bit complicated. I apologize for that. So I said, once the final transcriptions are done, we have a different set of coding layers in order to exploit the product correctly. So the result is a data set that is, of course, huge in size, and that allows us to zoom out and zoom in to see macro level narrative trends, micro level doctrinal organizational shifts, you name it, actually. And that's precisely what makes the product not only useful for academic research, but also for counterterrorism approaches, tailored and policy relevant analysis. Let me just show you very quickly the different coding levels that we use. Basically, we're talking about three different and complementary levels of coding. The first one will be following just correctly I analysis, so noting every contextual metadata, who is speaking, when, through which outlet was this published, which names are mentioned, which books are mentioned in the product. The second will be a textual level of coding, in which we focus on language itself, rhetorical structures, recurrent syntactic patterns, linguistic markers, etc. And finally, there is the thematic level, in which we code shared units, like kind of sentences, but can be longer than sentences, according to their shared meaning, using a hierarchical system of categories and subcategories, which will later allow us to track concepts, ideological themes, systematically, of course, and across time and organizations. So taken together, this 3 layers is what allows us to move seamlessly from context to meaning to language and back again. So, yeah. Up to this point, I've talked about why narratives matter and how Titan structures jihadist discourse analytically. But Titan is not just a corpus, and it's not just a database. It is really a tool we've designed to turn huge volumes of Arabic language propaganda into actionable analytical insight. So what you'll see here is not just isolated examples or hand-picked cases. I'll try to show you different entry points into the same empirical base, so different kind of products and questions and answers that you can, the user can throw at the Titan, at the corpus, to get different kind of answers. Of course, one of the risks of presenting computational tools is that they appear technical but detached from meaning. So as we go through these examples, I'll try to anchor each one in a strategic question, not just a technical capability. So I'll quickly zoom into some screenshots to give you a sense of the kinds of questions that we can ask our tool. So, of course, we can go from individual Arabic terms to systematic linguistic querying. So Titan, of course, allows us to find precise word and, of course, root-based. You know how Arabic works, which enables analysts to trace how specific terms are used across a given set of documents. So instead of saying this concept is central or important, we can ask how central, when does it appear, in which format, in which phrases, etc., etc. But of course, we do not just count hits like, okay, they mentioned the word khilafa 102 times, but we want to know how are they distributed, to know if they come in a different or specific set of documents, always at the beginning of the discourse, always at the end. It really depends, and it can be definitely very important. But remember, context is not just anecdotal, it's computable. So Titan does not only provide the context for any given hit, but also enables the analysis of co-occurrences, showing results when 2 words appear within specific proximity. And this is when discourse becomes structured. Concepts rarely appear in isolation. So the proximity between terms often reveals ideological position, internal tensions, strategic messaging shifts. Of course, Titan, it also tracks modifiers and repeated multi-word expressions, which come together, allowing analysts to detect patterns of emphasis, framing, and rhetorical stabilization over time. Here in your screen, you will see the modifiers that usually appear together with the word jihad. I forgot which set of documents was this, but anyway, you have different concepts that appear together. So jihad al-siyasi, jihad al-sa'ab, jihad al-wajib, jihad al-mu'asir, etc., etc. So, and of course, you can count those. You can see how often do they appear. You can compare it by month, by year, by source product, by organization, by branch. Of course, we can generate comparative visual products that show how different narrative categories are weighted depending on the type of propaganda output, which allows us to see at glance how narrative priorities shifts depending on the format. It's very important because not all propaganda outputs serve the same strategic foundation. You know, sometimes interviews have different core messages than essays or than audios or audiovisual products. So Titan really enables us to detect how messaging adapts not only across organizations and over time, but also across media formats, across audiences, target audiences. Because, of course, I mean, the very lengthy books of 200, 300, 400 pages do not target the same public as a ultra-violence video of 2 minutes. Then we have weighted visualizations, such as the one now appearing on your screen, which allow very quick identification of dominant themes and overlapping subcategories. Also, their narrative proximity in the same narrative space. So, you know, always according to any user parameters and queries to see if violence comes together with religious justification, with enemies, with victimhood themes, etc., etc. And of course, this can be shown in a very visual way in order to be easily understandable just by a glance. Titan is also capable of revealing how thematic codes and subcodes relate to one another. And of course, it allows to track narrative evolution over time as it enables longitudinal analysis, showing how the use of terms and of concepts rises or declines or transforms across different periods or campaigns. So this is, of course, particularly relevant for early signal detection. When a concept begins to rise steadily across multiple outputs, that is definitely not random. It often reflects internal prioritization. Of course, it also allows us to go from vocabulary to conceptual ecosystems. It has the capacity to generate conceptual proximity maps based on a created thesaurus, which enables the visualization of semantic relationships and thematic clusters across the entire propaganda. It also allows us to see heat maps, thematic heat maps, which allows the visualization of narratives over time across documents, organizations, formats, frames to see what has a bigger specific weight during a certain period. It also allows us to deconstruct narrative axes. Let's say, okay, these all components account for what we understand as ideological basis of Salafi jihadism. We can measure the internal composition of these main axes and divide them in subcategories and see which specific weight has a different theme for a different organization. Maybe martyrdom is a growing sub-theme is getting more importance by the organization. Maybe al-Hakimiyya, maybe Tamkeen, because they're trying to establish a certain source of legitimacy on the ground. Of course, this also our tool also allows to measure discourse similarities beyond intuition. You know, Titan, it does really make possible to explore patterns of replication, coordination, authorship, or even divergence across document, which means that in practice, we can detect unusual similarities within documents with a high degree of confidence. Of course, this does not prove 100% same authorship, but it does provide us with the structured visibility into consistency and divergence. So being able more or less to to understand that different set of documents has probably been written by the same author. Maybe the author changes. Anyway, very useful as well. And of course, a bunch of many other simpler things, but very visual in the very beginning, like interactive frequency least, word clouds to provide a faster way to identify dominant axis, dominant lexical items, recurrent thematic patterns, etc. So this, as I said, are just a few examples, but I think they illustrate that when or how when corpus scale data meets contextualized analysis, we can really move beyond description and start extracting strategic, very valuable insights from jihadist discourse and at scale. See, of course, what you've seen so far, I'll try to be quick. It's not just technical capability. It's not just simply about building a huge corpus, but it's about making it work right and adapting to Arabic. It's not just about coding thousands and thousands of segments, millions of words. And it's not just about producing visually appealing graphs. What you've seen translates directly into how research is conducted and how risks can be assessed and how interventions can be tailored and designed. So when we talk about identifying emerging trends, we're talking about early warning capabilities, early warning capacities. If a particular enemy category begins to gain prominence, if a doctrinal concept starts appearing with greater density, if rhetorical tone shifts from delegitimization to operational incitement, those are measurable signals. And in many cases, they appear first in discourse, then on the ground. Comparative studies, for examples, allow us to move beyond generic statements like, oh, these groups are similar or these groups are different. We can empirically test strategic differentiation from the central structure to the branches. Are there differences? Are there tensions between, for example, Al-Qaeda Central or Al-Qaeda fi Jazirat al-Arab or Al-Qaeda fi al-Maghrib al-Islami? Of course, when we look at narrative evolution over time, we're not simply describing discourse, we're identifying patterns of recalibration. We are examining adaptation. We're asking whether a shift is tactical, contextual, just propaganda, or maybe structural. And that is how we move from anecdotal interpretation to structure empirical comparison. And this has direct research implications and definitely policy implications that can be applied. But anyway, let me also be very clear about what Titan cannot do. I mean, this is not magic. It does not predict attacks, but it can tell you that if the last 10 times that a jihadist organization, a given jihadist organization has issued specific threats, how many times did these threats translate into a real attack? How accurate were the threats compared to the attack? How long did it take for the attack to happen after the threats? See, of course, it does not eliminate interpretation or regional expertise or contextual knowledge. It does not generate deterministic forecasts. What it does, however, is structure a field of evidence. It provides a systematic way of detecting patterns, identifying shifts, and grounding interpretation into a broader empirical base. So the analytical judgment still belongs to the researcher or to the team or the practitioner or security forces, but context still matters, knowledge still matters, political development still matters, local dynamics still matter, but Titan strengthens interpretation. And that distinction is essential. You see, let me move very quickly to the end, which is what comes next, or how can we engage with Titan. So, as I said, this is not just a technical capability, it's a whole analytical infrastructure. Up to this point, I've shown you a bit what Titan can do, and now I want to tell you what Titan can become when it's used over time and systematically, because it is not a closed product. It is a platform that is designed to be used, extended, and queried depending on analytical needs. And that is where Titan is heading, towards supporting strategic reading, not just descriptive analysis, towards helping distinguish noise from signal, and towards making discourse analysis usable at the pace and the scale that policy and security environments actually require. Because Titan changes the logic of how questions are asked. Instead of working with predefined samples or fixed hypotheses, it allows researchers and analysts to explore the corpus freely, at scale, from multiple angles.
Bantuan hewan kurban ini kami maknai sebagai simbol bahwa semangat kebersamaan dan kepedulian
Sorry,
terus hidup
there's a
dan
lot of
terjaga.
noises coming from
Kami
the
juga
microphone.
berharap
So, I was saying that this makes it possible not only to answer existing questions, but also to generate new hypotheses and to detect emerging narrative trends. And of course, looking ahead, first of all, as part of the program on extremism, Titan directly feeds our own research output. In a few minutes, I will share with you some of the findings very quickly. We've translated into a set of pieces to illustrate how this approach translates into concrete policy relevant insight. But Titan is not designed to stop at in-house publication. It is a platform built to collaborate, able to absorb new analytical questions, support partners, and deliver target or fit to purpose analytical solution as the project evolves. In that sense, it is not a finished project, but is a growing analytical capability, a tool that will be strengthened through views and collaboration, a whole infrastructure, if you may, for long-term understanding and not just one-off analysis. And one that sharpens as new questions are asked and new uses emerged. And with these, say I'll stop here for what regards Titan. Now, if I can ask the moderator, I have, let's say, maybe a 2-3 minute explanation of how we've translated all these, or the power of all these of this
terima
huge
kasih.
tool into some findings that we've published recently, some of them that we have not published yet. Maybe that is of interest. If not, I can keep it for later.
Okay.
Can I
Sekarang saya
continue
ya
for a couple of
tadi.
minutes, or maybe I've taken too long?
Ya, tapi dengan catatan begini, Mas. Mohon maaf sebelumnya, kami awalnya mengira Dr. Altuna ini akan presentasi tentang hasil penelitian terbaru, karena itu info yang kami dapat. Kalau tentang, jadi dan itu juga alasan kenapa kami mengundang banyak orang untuk hadir di sini, karena kami pengen ngelihat narasi apa yang berkembang di kelompok teroris global, apa saja yang berubah, dan apa eh, apa pentingnya bagi kami di Indonesia dan di Asia ini untuk tahu perubahan itu. Jadi saya tadinya berharap ke situ sebenarnya pembahasannya. Oke, Pak. Apakah Anda punya bahan untuk disampaikan terkait dengan itu? Oke, mungkin 3-5 menit ya.
Yes.
Oke.
Yes. Yeah, my idea was a bit for the people that it's not familiar with with these newly developed tool that we've been exploiting for 5 months or so after developing it for a couple of years. So yes, I brought different let's say outcomes that we've published and unpublished for you to have also some special insights that I will share with you immediately. So let me walk you through some of the findings of the pieces we've published. So the most recent set of pieces has to do with global jihadist and Shia groups and Iran, because, well, as most of you probably know, sectarianism is one of the defining features of jihadist ideology, particularly in the case of ISIS. But as the war erupted between the United States, Israel, and Iran, we thought it was an appropriate time to see how jihadists engage with these issues. And as we started looking more closely at these, we realized that the actual weight of anti-Shia narratives across time and across organizations or different contexts was far less clean or far less clear than many people assume. As I said, we kind of used, quote unquote, the war context as an opportunity to produce two different set of pieces, trying to look at two complementary things. So the first time analyzing the historical, if we say, the relative way of Shia and Iran related themes within Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State's propaganda ecosystem. So we took an extended period of time in order to analyze these and to establish a baseline, which became the basis of, say, the main or the first report. So that piece was very important in itself. But what it makes it more important was timing, because once the escalation involving Iran began, we understood that we had something extremely valuable analytically. So a baseline allowing us to observe how both organizations behave under pressure when they are expected to communicate, when are expected to say something about what's going on in an important region with an important player. And what we wanted to examine here was not simply what these groups believe ideologically, but how structural constraints shape their communication when events force clear signaling. Because once Iran moves to the center of regional conflict, ambiguity becomes harder to sustain. So this is when the contrast became even sharper. So what we discovered, studying first the very long period of time, 2020, 2025, is that for the Islamic State, sectarianism functions almost as an organizing principle. So Iran and the broader Shia axis occupy a highly visible and operationalized position within its enemy hierarchy. They are always present, even if there's no conflict, there is no open conflict in the zone. The framing they use is always repetitive, doctrinally very rigid, and structurally central to how the group explains conflict and legitimizes violence. Al-Qaeda looked very different. References to Shia actors were comparatively very limited, always conditional, and offers subordinated to broader strategic priorities. And of course, Iran in particular emerge as one of the clearest points of differentiation between the two organizations. So when we approach historical communication regarding Iran, we understood that yes, sectarian hostility exists in both
Itulah setiap
ecosystems,
perusahaan namanya kalau kita
but it
kasih
does not
tahu
function
mereka.
the same way, or nor does it carry the same strategic weight. For example, let me share with you
Bagus ya, Pak.
very quickly. Can I be here? One second. I'm trying to share another piece
Hampir
of
jadi punya
information.
kawan-kawan nih. Dia ada anak cewek kan.
Am I sharing my screen? I am sharing my screen, right? Yes, no problem.
Mungkin nanti dulu ya Mas, bagian apa tanya jawabnya ke pembicara. Kan kita ada 3 pembahas nih. Nah, setelah itu saja mungkin. Halo?
Silakan dilanjut Mas Khairil, nggih.
Yep. So
izin Bapak ya.
basically, you can see here, let's say the subcategory we coded as the different subcategories we coded as the enemy uh, um, for the 2020 to the 2025 year period. This includes other publications, and you can see what the picture when it comes to Al Qaeda looks like. So let's say the enemy among the very varied enemies that they identify that is considered as most important given their the amount of times that they mention the emphasis they use as local regimes or governments. So basically, fellow Sunni Muslims that they are considered apostates, that they are considered getting farther away from religion. And then, as one could expect, but also very, very much behind the United States, Jews, Russia, and we can see we're talking about Iran, that Shia groups only amount to 0.32% of the mentions of any enemy. So very, very limited amount of importance. This, again, we're tackling 2020, 2025 before the war began. Now, if we have a look at the same data, but for the Islamic State, we can see that local regimes are also placed first, but also with maybe half of the importance that Al Qaeda gives them, while Shia enemies or Iran reaches almost a 22, a 23 almost percent. So they really make a, let's say, a focus, a very strong focus on Iran, on Shia communities in the region, even at moments of let's say of relative peace. It is a very uh, structural enemy. Let me get back to 1 second. I'm trying to just not share anything now. Well, I'll leave it here. Anyway, that's fine. Yeah. So what we can infer from these, from our baseline studies, that sectarianism is not simply an ideological constant, equally activated across the jihadist field. So jihadists are not always the same, right? It has become something much more instrumental. It is selectively emphasized and strategically calibrated within different organization logics. And Iran, of course, becomes a very clear point with this difference crystallize. But what happens with when Iran suddenly moves to the center of regional attention, that's something different. That is when we can observe what changes, and equally important, what does not change. Well, for ISIS, well, let me tell you that
Mas,
after
minta tolong
creating,
sampaikan mungkin waktunya sudah habis ya.
okay, I'll leave it here then. Thank you very much.
Iya, iya. Terima kasih Pak Sergio Altona. Mohon maaf sebelumnya, tapi memang waktu yang Anda gunakan sudah lebih banyak dari yang kami sediakan. Eh, Selanjutnya saya mempersilakan penanggap pertama. Sekali lagi dengan tadi kami harapannya sebenarnya mendapat informasi tentang riset terbaru atau hal yang lain, bukan soal tool yang Anda gunakan. Saya mengundang Ustadz Parawijayanto, mantan Amir Jamaah Islamiyah, untuk bergabung bersama kami di sini, memberikan tanggapan, terutama terkait dengan pola narasi dan perubahan barangkali narasi di kalangan kelompok radikal teroris. Ustadz Para, Assalamualaikum, sudah ada di sini? Ustadz Para? Atau kita ke Dr. Wahid Ridwan dulu?
Okay. Maybe Brother Sergio, would you like to close your presentation so then everyone can see the screen? or I just speak. Yeah, I think you need to close your share
Ya,
screen. Ya, great. Jadi saya dulu, Mas Anam.
ya,
Tadi
tentu.
Ustadz Para ada loh, sudah loh.
Belum maju. Mungkin kita save the best for the rest ya. Yang muda dulu lah. Silakan,
Oke.
Bapak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu sekalian. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semuanya. Alhamdulillah. Syahadu an la ilaha illallah wa syahadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Brother Dr. Sergio, thank you very much for your presentation, and indeed it's a very insightful. For me, it's really a good tool as academician that usually deal with the research. And I would like to speak in Bahasa Indonesia because our audience is all in
Mas, penerjemahan bahasa
Bahasa
Indonesia nggak usah
Indonesia.
lah.
Jadi saya
Kok
akan
kedengar ke
menggunakan
kita sih?
Bahasa Indonesia. Ya.
Ke si Sergio-nya aja kali ya, Mas.
Iya, tadi udah saya maksudkan. Jadi, Bapak Ibu sekalian, pertama terima kasih juga sebagai rumah bagi saya juga di Rumah Wasatiyah. Saya akan menanggapi yang tadi disampaikan oleh Dr. Sergio. Sebenarnya beliau lebih banyak mengulas tool yang itu kalau di dalam kita akademisi, saya juga sebagai dosen di Universitas para Madinah itu terbiasa Pak dengan menggunakan model-model tool analisis ya. Nah, yang beliau gunakan tadi itu dinamakan Titan, itu Terrorism Insight through Analysis of Narrative ya. Jadi bahasa Indonesianya itu kira-kira pesan-pesan teror apa yang sering muncul gitu ya. Kemudian bagi beliau dia akan analisis ya melalui naratifnya itu. Nah, tadi saya mendengarkan dengan seksama beberapa catatan, misalkan beliau menggunakan eh, tool analisisnya itu level. Nah, kalau di dalam keilmuan metodologi itu ada dua, mungkin nanti Pak Sergio juga bisa memberikan tanggapan ya. Jadi ada dua model analisis yang sangat penting ya. Jadi tidak hanya level, tetapi ada unit ya. Jadi kalau level itu dia akan melihat seberapa apa ya impactful tadi yang beliau katakan ya, seberapa imbas yang dia akan diakibatkan dari analisis itu terhadap levelingnya, apakah dia global, apakah dia regional, apakah dia nasional. Tetapi ada apa namanya unit ya, model analisis unit. Unit yang itu menurut saya akan lebih dahsyat. Jadi unit ini aktor. Jadi aktor itu lebih luas dan akan lebih sangat dalam tanda kutip fragile gitu ya. Jadi dia akan lebih liar ya. Karena aktor itu bisa di level global, dia main di regional, dia main di nasional, tetapi dengan menggunakan karakter yang berbagai macam. Nah, saya tidak tahu apakah Titan nanti juga bisa menggunakan toolnya itu untuk menganalisis unitnya gitu ya. Karena dalam model analisis itu tentu dua model itu sangat penting. Level tadi sudah disebut ya oleh Dr. Sergio, kemudian unit yang saya tidak melihatnya ya, dan dalam analisis-analisis yang terkait dengan eh, terorisme dan kontraterorisme. Saya ada 44 slide nanti bisa diminta dari Mas Anam oleh Bapak Ibu sekalian. Yang sebenarnya itu adalah eh, apa istilahnya ya summary dari disertasi saya berkenaan dengan kajian kontraterorisme di Indonesia. Jadi itu tanggapan saya yang pertama ke Dr. Sergio, whether your tool is covering also the unit in the analysis ya atau hanya levelnya saja. Kemudian yang kedua, saya kira metodologinya cukup bagus karena saya juga menggunakan sama metodologi yang digunakan dua-duanya ya mixed method, ada kualitatif, ada kuantitatif. Yang dalam metodologi analisis terhadap fenomena apapun ya terutama dalam fenomena-fenomena yang terkait dengan masalah kontraterorisme, terorisme dan isu-isu ideologi itu akan sangat-sangat penting ya karena bahasa kualitatif itu seperti tadi yang dikatakan oleh Pak Sergio bagus ya dia bisa merepresentasikan sebuah fenomena, tetapi dia akan lemah ketika harus mentransfer ke dalam sebuah policy. Karena tadi disampaikan di akhir juga oleh Pak Sergio, that this Titan itu dia tidak hanya merupakan tool analisis, tapi juga akan bisa memberikan transfer ke dalam policy, uh, policy, what is the policy impact, ya policy impact. Nah, kalau dua metodologi itu dipakai, dua pendekatan maksud saya kualitatif dan kuantitatif, ya nanti Bapak Ibu juga bisa dilihat dalam slide-slide saya, ya itu betapa pentingnya angka itu ya di dalam menjelaskan sebuah fenomena yang kemudian dia akan ditransfer ke dalam sebuah kebijakan. Nah, kalau tadi Pak Sergio saya tidak tahu seberapa banyak variabel ya yang bisa di cover ya di dalam tool Titans itu. Dalam contoh yang saya berikan di dalam slide itu kebetulan juga itu merupakan representasi dari disertasi saya itu hanya 28 variabel. Itu baik dalam level maupun unit analisis ya semuanya tercover di situ. Jadi yang kedua tuh metodologinya cukup bagus dan saya kira untuk sebuah analisis itu sangat sangat cocok dan apalagi kalau kita lihat fenomena terorisme sekarang ya Bapak Ibu sekalian saya sangat yakin Bapak Ibu ada di situ ya ada di dalam area itu betapa shift itu ya geseran itu apa ya sangat strategis momental dan apa ya istilahnya itu sangat apa istilahnya itu ya cross cuttingnya itu sangat ketat ya. Jadi kita bisa melihat misalkan ketika 2000, nah, we start from 9/11 misalkan 2001 ya. Itu musuh yang dianggap gitu ya itu adalah global ya Amerika polisinya dan sebagainya. Tapi kan kemudian isu itu menjadi safe. Sampai hari ini saya kira Amerika bukan lagi menjadi target itu untuk terorisme. Sekarang sudah menjadi malah anak-anak muda itu sudah tidak banyak membincang masalah ideologi atau nasional keagamaan. Mereka lebih lebih apa atau dalam bahasa lain ya kelompok-kelompok yang ingin mendirikan negara Islam itu bagi anak-anak muda itu sudah tidak menjadi ketertarikan. Ya. Mereka lebih banyak peduli pada masalah kemanusiaan, mereka lebih peduli pada masalah-masalah apa istilahnya itu ya kekiri-kirian lah dalam tanda kutip ya Bapak sosialisme lah terutama ya atau kalau dalam isme yang lebih ekstrim itu nihilisme jadi mereka lebih banyak ke situ anak-anak muda itu ya. Nah yang semacam ini apakah bisa ya di cover oleh tool Titan itu nah kalau di dalam nanti kalau Bapak Ibu mendapatkan slide saya di dalam Power Sim Studio 10 Academic yang saya pakai mirip juga dengan tool Sergio, hanya ini dikembangkan oleh MIT ya. Nah, itu dia mengcover kedua-duanya tadi yang saya sampaikan. Dia mengcover level, tapi dia juga mengcover unit. Dan dia akan mengikuti isu apa tergantung kita researchernya. Nah, itu yang kedua, tanggapan saya terhadap apa yang disampaikan oleh Sergio. Yang ketiga, tadi menarik ya, Sergio, you mention about subcategories gitu ya. Um, saya kira itu memang sangat penting ya Bapak Ibu sekalian dalam sebuah analisis terutama Bapak-bapak yang ada di intelligence ya itu kita tidak bisa memandang fenomena itu dalam skala yang general ya, yang umum ya, yang sifatnya kalau di dalam sebuah penelitian itu namanya black box-nya itu tentu kita harus pahami ya dan itu sangat kasat ya black box itu ya loophole itu lubang yang menjadi persoalan itu apa itu kan tentu kita semuanya paham tetapi jauh dari itu tentu harus ada sub-subnya tadi di Titan di Sergio menjelaskan ada subkategoris ya kalau di dalam Power Sim Studio 10 akademik itu ada namanya subsystem jadi artinya ketika masalah terorisme itu muncul ya, misalkan ambillah salah satu contoh gitu, waktu waktu itu ya ada pengeboman di kedutaan-kedutaan misalkan atau penyerangan-penyerangan di rumah ibadah. Nah, black box itu ada di sana itu ya. Mengapa kedutaan diserang? Mengapa rumah ibadah itu diserang? Itu black book-nya, tetapi kemudian subsistemnya, ya, mengapa itu terjadi, siapa saja dan segalanya lah ya, Bapak Ibu saya amat sangat yakin memahami alurnya, tetapi untuk membuat sebuah policy impact, ya, atau policy yang memang sifatnya itu adalah untuk dilakukan, ya, itu memang perlu ada tool analisis. Nah, inilah tadi mungkin yang Dr. Sergio itu sampaikan, kalau Titan adalah seperti yang tadi, kalau saya menggunakan cara dan metode lain, tetapi secara umum sebenarnya Bapak Ibu ada sudah di dalam benak Bapak Ibu sekalian, ya, alurnya seperti apa. em, ada coba Bapak Ibu buat studi kasus ya tentang yang pengeboman di di Surabaya. Itu menarik sekali Bapak Ibu. Nah, itu kalau dibuat analisisnya, ya, cuman itu kan untuk kemudian gimana kita lebih jauh memahami strategi yang tepat kemudian seperti apa gitu ya untuk mengadres sebuah persoalan bila yang semacam itu boleh jadi terjadi lagi misalkan. Bagaimana antisipasinya? Itu semacam apa itu, dua dua anak panah ya, antara Densus sebagai lembaga penegak umum yang mencegah adanya tindak kekerasan, sementara di pihak lain ya mereka betul-betul ingin ya buat kekerasan itu. Nah, itulah yang kemudian tool-tool yang semacam ini itu kadang bisa membantu kita gitu ya untuk mencari solusi atau benang merahnya. Nah, kalau kita lihat nanti Bapak Ibu boleh baca juga di slide saya. Saya itu membuat sistem kontraterorisme, dinamika sistemnya itu sampai 2030. Nanti bisa minta Mas Anam slide-nya. Nah, kalau dinamika itu ya kita menggunakan tool yang kita pahami, kita bisa skenariokan. Jadi misalkan kira-kira dari subsistem yang mana yang perlu diperkuat, ya. Lalu kemudian strategi itu yang dipakai, maka insya Allah apa yang kita cita-citakan, apa yang kita semua ingin harapkan ya, sesuatu yang buruk itu tidak terjadi dengan menggunakan strategi yang tepat, insya Allah tepat. Nah, yang semacam ini saya kira di masa-masa yang seperti ini ya itu perlu, karena dua-duanya maksud saya di kelompok yang sana ya, yang jihadis tadi ya beliau katakan, kalau di slide saya memang mereka adalah kelompok-kelompok jihadis itu, tapi sebenarnya ada counternya, itu kelompok ijtihadinya. Ya, harusnya kelompok ijtihadi inilah yang diperkuat ya, bukan kelompok jihadisnya. Nah, bagaimana membuat yang seperti ini, yang ijtihadi itu lebih kuat dibanding yang jihadi, itulah pakai strategi. Strategi itulah dengan menggunakan tool-tool yang semacam ini, Bapak Ibu. Jadi mungkin ini sekedar on the paper, tetapi actually gitu ya, sebenarnya kita bisa mengimplementasikan ke dalam sebuah ranah nyata di dalam policy itu, ya, di dalam kebijakan itu. Nah, saya kira itu Mas Anam ya, apa yang bisa saya tanggapi dari apa yang disampaikan oleh Sergio tadi. Mungkin kita nanti bisa lebih jauh dan dalam untuk berdiskusi kalau memang diperlukan. Terima kasih Mas Anam.
Terima kasih, Dr. Wahid Ridwan. Saya yakin Pak Sergio Altuna juga sudah mencatat beberapa pertanyaan dari Anda. Sebelum mulai diskusi tanya jawab dan seterusnya, saya mengundang Ustadz Parawijayanto untuk ikut memberikan komentar sebagai pembicara kedua. Ustadz Paras, bisa mendengar suara saya? Halo, Ustadz Paras?
Bisa terdengar suara kami?
Iya.
Agak agak jauh, Ustaz. Tes. Bisa terdengar?
Iya, iya. Iya, terdengar. Silakan, Ustadz.
Terima kasih. Tapi sangat
Halo.
Kurang jelas Pak Ustadz suaranya.
Coba Abi.
Halo.
Ya, ya. Silakan Ustaz. Hmm.
Selamat siang, izin itu suara pembicaranya kena mute itu Pak, makanya nggak ada suara dari tadi.
Ya, Rizky, minta tolong atau ganti akun saja pakai yang dipakai Umi. Halo? Kita tunggu sebentar ya, izin. Halo Pak Para?
Halo, tes tes. Bisa didengar?
Ya, ya Pak Para, bisa terdengar. Silakan Ustaz.
Baik. Intinya kami mengapresiasi metodologi yang digunakan oleh Dr. Sergio. Cuman kami akan memberi masukan berkaitan dengan pengalaman empiris ya, artinya praktek di lapangan dari sisi yang berbeda. Ya,
Hmm.
memang perubahan bahasa sering menjadi indikator perubahan strategi daripada sebuah organisasi. Ya, jadi sebagai contoh misalnya ketika organisasi tersebut sering mengeluarkan kata-kata khilafah, tiba-tiba sering dipakai, mungkin terdapat agenda ekspansi ideologis atau
Hmm.
tiba-tiba menggunakan banyak narasi etnis menjadi lebih dominan. Bisa jadi kelompok tersebut mungkin sedang mencari dukungan dari lokal atau mungkin tiba-tiba sering dibahas tentang anti barat, ya, sering menguat, makin sering dibahas. Berarti kemungkinan adalah mempersiapkan serangan internasional. Oleh karena itu memang analisa narasi dapat membantu untuk memahami arah pergerakan organisasi atau memprediksi perubahan strategi atau mengidentifikasi pola-pola radikalisasi serta bisa untuk mengembangkan kontranarasi yang lebih akurat. Namun yang perlu diperhatikan, ada contoh yang menarik yang mungkin nanti bisa membuat metode analisa ini tidak tepat. Ya, artinya ada satu kelemahan. Misalnya kalau kita mengingat tulisan daripada Syekh Atiyatullah Alibi, ya, salah satu mufti di Al-Qaeda, ini dia membuat satu tulisan yang membahas tentang hukumnya memerangi tentara atau polisi, ya. Nah, tapi dengan pembahasan yang tidak seperti sebelumnya, ya. Artinya di mana di situ masalah takfiri lebih diperingatkan untuk mematuhi tentang kaidah-kaidah takfir, ya, kemudian menghindari takfir muayyan, ya. Nah, kemudian juga menghindari pertumpahan darah kaum muslimin. Nah, di sini bisa dibaca, ya, misalnya menggunakan eh, analisa narasi tadi, bisa dibaca sebagai
moderasi, ya, sikap moderasi, tapi merupakan taktis. Ya, hanya moderasi taktis mungkin. Padahal aslinya sebetulnya bukan moderasi taktis, memang moderasi ideologis. Ya, kenapa? Dari segi taktis memang menguntungkan, dengan perubahan-perubahan itu akan membuat jalan untuk menuju jihad global akan lebih terbuka. Ya, karena dengan tidak mengkafirkan seluruh tentara, mengakui konsep mawani tafir, ya, dengan cara-cara yang lebih moderat, ya, tidak mengkafirkan polisi, maka kemungkinan berkembangnya jalan menuju jihad global lebih terbuka. Di samping itu meninggalkan jihad lokal menuju jihad global, ya, meninggalkan musuh yang dekat menuju musuh yang jauh. Ini memudahkan, artinya moderasi taktis bisa dibaca demikian. Tapi faktanya sebetulnya itu merupakan moderasi ideologis, karena proses untuk sampai pada keputusan seperti itu bukan karena taktis, bukan karena strategi, tapi karena memang diproses sesuai dengan metodologi ilmiah yang diproses oleh para ulama, ya, sehingga memang kesimpulannya tidak boleh mudah mengkafirkan, ya, artinya kembali secara ilmu mengubah pandangan sebelumnya, ya, sehingga karena diproses secara metodologi ilmiah, dikaji oleh para ulama, menghasilkan keputusan yang strategis. Ini sebetulnya bukan sekedar untuk moderasi taktis, tapi juga sebetulnya merupakan moderasi yang memang ideologis. Artinya perubahan yang ke arah positif sebetulnya, ya, yang berupa akhirnya hampir di seluruh dunia mengurangi bentuk-bentuk amaliyat yang bisa menumpahkan darah kaum muslimin. Kemudian juga menimbulkan berkurangnya serangan kepada aparat, ya, khususnya aparat polisi. Nah, ini karena adanya kajian-kajian yang ditulis, ya, untuk menghadapi konteks pada saat itu. Nah, artinya ini kalau tidak teliti dengan menggunakan metode tadi, maka juga bisa akhirnya tidak tepat dalam mengambil kesimpulan. Jadi memang secara metodologis Titan sangat efektif untuk pemetaan narasi, menganalisa evolusi diskursus, mengidentifikasi pola-pola ideologi, serta melakukan analisis propaganda berbasis data. Namun ada sisi kelemahan, yaitu pada kecenderungannya untuk mereduksi fenomena ideologis, teologis, psikologis, dan sosiopolitik, terutama menjadi persoalan linguistik dan statistik tekstual. Kelemahan kedua adalah terletak pada kenyataan bahwa ideologi keagamaan yang kompleks dapat direduksi hanya menjadi pola-pola linguistik semata, ya, seperti pada contoh tadi. Karena masalah keyakinan, konteks teologi, dinamika fikih, psikologi para pelaku, serta realitas sosial politik tidak selalu dapat dipahami hanya melalui teks semata. Kemudian kelemahan ketiga, kita melihat adanya risiko bias politik dan keamanan, karena proyek-proyek seperti ini sering berkaitan dengan counter-terrorism atau countering violent extremism, berkaitan dengan keamanan, kebijakan negara, serta kontra-terorisme. Maka terdapat kemungkinan bahwa penelitian tersebut didorong oleh agenda keamanan tertentu. Nah, hal ini dapat mempengaruhi framing, kategorisasi, serta interpretasi terhadap ideologi-ideologi Islam tertentu. Nah, kira-kira itu masukan kami, mudah-mudahan bermanfaat. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Abi. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, tentu saya nanti akan mengundang Anda untuk mengajukan pertanyaan atau barangkali jika punya pendapat yang ingin disampaikan. Tapi saya akan memberi waktu dulu, mungkin 2-3 menit kepada Pak Altuna untuk merespons pertanyaan dan masukan dari dua pembahas kita. Silakan, Dr. Altuna.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for the constructive criticism. So to start by responding, Professor Washid Ridwan, just let me begin by saying that the Titan project or any other tool used independently is not a crystal ball. I do not claim to be able to do miracles. It's subjective, or our objective is not to replace existing methods, but rather to enhance current capabilities through the contribution of new data. Also, when talking about data, and I think I made it quite clear during my presentation, it needs interpretation. Raw numbers do not provide any answer. They need a context, they need regional knowledge, they need policy knowledge. It's just another piece of information in order to inform analysis or decisions. So to answer your second question, well, this one was mostly in general. Regarding units, I did say also very clearly that from the three, broadly speaking, coding levels that we do use a unit level, a textual level that focuses on the meaning of each word, of words constructed together, etc., etc. So minimal units or minimal structures with which we consider, of course, important. The textual meaning, the textual use of every single unit. Also, when it comes to, I think I answered that in my first answer, but this is not a clash between quantitative and qualitative. It's about creating a set of tools, a set of information that now can be translated into a mixed method approach to inform better decisions. Same thing goes for the well, the political bias or security bias. I work for a university. I'm not I'm not even a citizen of the United States of America. I'm Spanish. As any professor, as any PhD holder, I do adhere to a code of ethics, and the pieces I produce try to, of course, contribute to academia, and when possible, just like the piece on Iran, they try to, let's say, make it more visible, taking advantage from current
Iya, aku kira tuh jam 9, jam
the current
10.
situation.
Sari
But
Dewi minta Novianti
let me
Sari
show
Dewi.
you. There's a lot of noise behind. Let me just in a couple of minutes show you other
Iya.
stuff that we've been digging that might be
Minta tolong
more
admin agar di mute.
interesting or less biased. So here's a
Okay.
question we ask ourselves. So how do jihadists actually quote the Quran? Now, I know people, academia, journalists, security professionals have been arguing about this for years. Some say they're literalists, others say they manipulate the text, right? Of course, we can approach to that and we have opinions. I'm just providing raw data so you can interpret, right? In a systematic, empirical, and quantitative way. So this amounts to data coming from all that's been said and published during the last 8 years. 8 years of time is a long time, right? So we decided to try to give an answer to that. For example, or let's say another question, is there discourse really religious? Are jihadist actors really religious? Reality is that this is not just rhetorical fluff, it's structural. So in Al-Qaeda, for example, Quranic citations only make up almost 4% of what they say. So let's say if a text, if all they say is 100%, 4% of that is just Quranic citation and a hadith. When you add that to exegetical content or strictly religious material, their discourse, their religious discourse amounts to 50% of what they say, which allows me to say that yes, they are religious players, they are religious actors. For the Islamic State, it's even higher. Quranic citations, only Quranic citations, yani suwar or ayat Quraniya, represent over 10% of their discourse. Every word out of 10 they say comes from the Quran. And their total religious content, so a hadith and other let's say, religious content, amounts to 17%. I'll tell you something also very interesting. One of the things we looked at isn't how do they quote the Quran, because the people say no, they say decontextualize things, they do not quote the Quran as it should be quoted, etc., etc. We wanted to, and this is an unpublished piece of information that I'm sharing with you. We wanted to really analyze from millions of sentences. Is this true? Well, in Al-Qa'da's case, for example, 49% of all the Quranic citations are incomplete. It means almost half of the time they cut the verse short, which is not forbidden in Islam. Probably the Sheikh will be able to inform you more about this, but it's not, let's say, it is mustahab. It will be recommended to quote at least a whole ayah. So they do not do that in 49% of the time. And that is a reason for that. I can go and give you examples of how they do that. Not necessary. But almost half of the time, they cut the verse short. For the Islamic State, it's 36%. 36% of the times they quote the ayat, Quraniya, they cut the ayah short. Let me be very clear. Does that not mean they're altering the actual words of the Quran? That would be tahrif. Okay? They do not do that. But they're systematically omitting parts of verses that would qualify, contextualize, limit that meaning. So this is, let's say, just an example of what we can do. I think it does not have a lot of interpreting from my part that I could add. It's just data. It is data based on a systematical coverage of the discourse, of the propaganda.
Oke, cukup ya. Oke. Terima kasih, Dr. Altuna. Mohon maaf, kita waktunya sangat terbatas dan saya sudah melihat ada beberapa peserta di kolom komentar sudah mengajukan pertanyaan. Lalu saya yakin juga di sini ada banyak yang ingin berdiskusi dengan Anda. Saya mengundang Anda semuanya, Bapak dan Ibu, jika ingin bertanya atau memberikan pendapat, silakan sampaikan nama, asal dari mana, lalu ditujukan kepada siapa. Kita punya 3 pembicara, ada Dr. Altuna, ada Dr. Wahid Ridwan, dan satu lagi adalah Ustadz Parawijayanto. Untuk termin pertama, saya persilakan kepada 3 orang. Silakan acungkan tangan atau pakai tanda di emoticon di layar Anda, silakan. Jika tidak, saya sambil membacakan pertanyaan ya di kolom komentar. Itu ada yang nanya pertama, itu dari Eko Yance. Dia nanya, Mr. Altuna, can Sadis encourage the rise of pan-Islamism which ignore the Sunni and Shia sectarian issue in the Iran versus Israel and US war? Lalu ada juga pertanyaan kedua, itu dari
Can you repeat the first question? Sorry, I didn't quite get it.
Ya. Pertanyaan ini ditulis di kolom komentar dari Eko Yance. Dia nanya, can Saadis arrest encourage the rise of pan-Islamism which ignores the Sunni and versus Shia sectarian issue in the Iran versus US, Israel and US war? That's the first. And then the second is pertanyaan dari Azmul Idam. Dia nanya secara objektif, bagaimana proyek Titan ini mengurangi bias dari hasil dokumen yang telah dianalisis, dan bagaimana pergerakan makna jihad dari tahun ke tahun sejak munculnya Al-Qaeda hingga ISIS, serta hingga era saat ini. Lalu satu lagi dari Subdit PNPT. Izin Bapak, silakan. Di unmute dulu.
Terima kasih nih Mas Khairil ya.
Sama Pak.
Memperkenalkan ya di forum yang luar biasa ini. Excuse me, Mr. Sergio Altuna. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think this an honor and also privilege for me to be participating in this excellent forum. And related to our concern under control of National Counterterrorism Agency, Republic of Indonesia, especially for Directorate for Prevention, and in particular for us, this under Community Empowerment Subdirectorate, and I am Haryanto, the Deputy Director for Community Empowerment Subdirectorate. For your explanation, Mr. Sergio, that in my opinion, I can highlight that for the Titan, deliver some points, and in our concern, how to collaborate with the Titan, because in our community empowerment, we have 2 surveys. Okay, because one of our aspects is research and evaluation. We have 2 research, especially for that. Okay, the firstly, we have index of terrorism risk in Indonesia, and the second one is index of terrorism potential in Indonesia. And then the data, there's we try to collect from Sabang to Merauke, because we have enumerators, and also for the researchers and assistant researchers, of course, there's a really selected by our forum, because we have strategic partner. We call this coordinating forum for preventing terrorism, and we have 36 provinces and 3 regencies, and 3 regencies. So I think they can spot for our research, especially for 2 indexes. In terms of these, Mr. Sergio, can you explain or give some maybe such kind of suggestion for us how to collaborate with the Titan, especially for this concern? Because in our forum, coordinating forum, in 36 provinces, we try to collaborate with all elements. We call this pentarelic approach, with our local government, with academics, with all community organizations, and also with entrepreneurs and journalists. So this is not really easy how to cope with this concern, and how to engage with your we call the Titan, and especially Mr. Sergio, because we are facing right now for the digital radicalization trend tends to we call influence to our children. And there's to be trending topics in our concern, especially for the academics year. And if we can, relate with the new context, how comes the incidents in San Diego? There's, of course, influence in our community. And there's to be one of our consideration how to cope with this concern if you try to collaborate with your Titan, especially for the research. And we have potential, especially for coordinating forum in 36 provinces and 3 regencies. I think this our one of explanation related to our forum, and also the subdirectorate for community empowerment under control of Directorate for Prevention in National Counterterrorism Republic of Indonesia. I think that's all, Mr. Sergio. And again, thank you very much for your a big effort for explaining us together dealing with the global decoding extremist narrative. Thank you again. Terima
kasih,
kasih,
Bapak.
Mas.
Ya. Mohon Pak Sergio Altona bisa langsung menjawab, tapi tidak lebih dari 5 menit. Silakan.
So that part was not interpreted, but I guess it's my turn to answer.
Oh.
That's yeah, I'm getting quick with your language. So for the first question regarding Saadi's arrest and the possible encourage of pan-Islamism, it's definitely difficult to assess right now, but because the arrest took place a few days ago, and this is just an opinion. I'm not a fine connoisseur of dynamics in Iraq and Iran and the broader Middle East. My regional expertise is mostly reduced to the Al-Maghreb al-Islami, the Islamic Maghreb, North Africa, and European Islamist networks. What I can say is that the Palestinian issue has been cross-cutting through different strands of Islamism, whether that is violent Islamism, non-violent Islamism, Sunni extremist Islamism, and Shia extremist Islamism. So this is making more and more difficult to predict responses or actions by violent actors around the globe when they're claiming that they are carrying attacks based on two, let's say, correlated explanation: religious issues and geopolitical issues related to Palestine. So it does blur a bit the boundaries between Sunni extremist militancy and Shia extremist militancy. That is for sure. It's a trend that we've been observing for the last 3 years. But again, I'm not at all an expert on the issue. On the second question, I mean, what I can tell you for sure is that numbers, let's say quantitative approaches to any subject, reduce the amount of bias. This has been overtly studied, and the higher the component of quantitative data, the lesser the bias. Again, I'm a proponent. I do believe that quantitative and qualitative should go hand in hand when it comes to analyzing propaganda, because it's a very complex issue, just like the Sheikh mentioned. The Sheikh, I apologize for these, the Sheikh Wihayantu said before, one needs to understand many dynamics behind propaganda, behind strategic messaging, but definitely having quantitative data at hand, with which was something very limited, is something very limited up to now, is highly important. It allows you to analyze trends, to analyze specific weight, to analyze occurrences, co-occurrences, etc., etc. Of course, as I said before, it's not a magic ball. It's not a magic crystal ball. It just adds to the pile. I mean, terrorism or any extremist ideology will never be fully understood. It's psychological issues, political issues, religious issues. Anyway, so it's just advancing. It's having a better position from which we can take, we can make decisions. For the third question from the BNPT high rank officer, thank you very much for the question. So basically, I cut my explanation short before, but let's say Titan works in 3 ways. One, it does feed our analysis both the ones we publish and the ones we don't, and we provide to different security agencies in the world according to what we believe is ethically correct when we see any alarm going off. But the two other pillars of Titan is collaborating, and usually it is made in two ways. One, it would be training. That's to say, training a set of members of your team in order to be able to replicate how Titan works and how Titan has developed a set of tools in order to be able to work with Arabic and to exploit big amount of data. And from, let's say, stage 0 to stage being completely able to operate Titan with a given group. We, for reasons of human resources, we are basically working with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State Central, and those that we consider up to now the most important branches for analysis. That will be Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, because Jenin and all the Sahel situation, and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula when it comes to Al-Qaeda, and the Islamic State Khorasan and the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, because if not, they publish an amount of materials that it's impossible to seize. But it could be, I mean, the tool has been developed so as to be able to work with data from any other group and be able to replicate the way it works. It could be Jama'a al-Islamiyya, it could be any organization, any discourse, actually. Probably its added value is that it works well with Arabic or non-Latin based alphabets. And also, let's say the other part, apart from providing training, it could potentially provide another kind of cooperating or collaborating relationship which will be providing tailored reports to answer the questions of a specialized team that needs to know or that wants to know something in particular. So in that case, we can provide with raw data or raw data and analysis to try to tackle those issues, to answer those questions, and to provide tailored analysis and reports. That's the three ways in which Titan works: in-house and providing analysis kind of collaboration or training kind of collaboration. That's how it's working, right? How our team is working right now. Thank you very much.
Oke, terima kasih. Semoga menjawab ya, Bapak izin. Ya, intinya Sergio terbuka untuk diberi masukan atau dikasih data mentah, nanti dia bisa bantu untuk ngasih itu. Berikutnya, mungkin Pak Sueb Tahir ya. Langsung ngomong saja, Pak Sueb. Halo, Pak Sueb.
Yeah. Thank you very much for Mr. Anil. And my question is to Mr. Sergio. Yeah. Syukran.
Mau pakai bahasa Arab?
Syukran jazila Mr. Sergio. Ana lahatuka bitahaddas al-lugha al-arabiyya tamama. As-su'al hina Mr. Sergio. Taban so many accents during this time among the youth. Then we say that this is affected by the online game. Yeah. So what happened in Jakarta in 2025 and also in another country, there are so many violent extremism that happen among the youth. So I'd like to ask you that, is your organization also concerned in online game? Because we are in the MPT, during this time, we just only focus in narrative. So we are making a narrative through online, but since the transformation from the narrative to the visual or online game, we find a little bit difficult to provide a counter narrative. So that's only my question. Thank you very much.
Satu aja pertanyaannya.
Ya,
Oke,
itu
Pak.
aja
Siap.
Pak.
Sebelum ke Pak Sergio, apakah ada dari peserta yang lain yang juga ingin bertanya? Oke deh, dari Pak Sueb Tahir dulu. Silakan, Pak Sergio.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. شكرا على سؤالك. And indeed, yes, I've been living for the last 15 years. Now I live between Italy and the United States, but I've been living for the most part in North Africa. So that will be Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. And that amounts to 15 years. So yeah, Arabic is an important part of my life and my family. As for the yeah, online gen and related violence. So we at the program on
Yeah.
extremism, we focus on different kinds of extremism, different extremist ideologies. It is emerging, and it is emerging tightly synchronized also with anti-tech terrorism. So we've devoted a team of five researchers during the last 2 years to those strands, let's say, of emerging trends of extremism, and they are publishing pieces and providing analysis to related institutions on those two kinds of extremism. However, I am not very familiar with their research because we have, let's say, a seizable team, and I'm mostly working in the global jihadism branch of the program and the um, global Islamism in the West. So that will be basically modern Islamist ideology in the West. So mostly Hizb al-Tahrir, mostly Al-Jama'a in Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin in the West. So I am not very familiar with how those trends are evolving, other than as a spectator, just like you, probably also interested in extremism in general. But yes, as I said, both trends, online gen terrorism and anti-tech terrorism, are being studied from within the program for the last 2.5 years. Yeah, that was all from me.
Terima kasih. Um, uh, Bapak dan Ibu, jika tidak ada pertanyaan, saya ingin mengundang Pak Para lagi. Ustadz Para, halo?
Oh iya,
Ya, Ustadz Para, kita masih punya waktu ini sebenarnya. Saya sebenarnya tadi nunggu nih, berharap. Kan Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, Sergio ini fokusnya pada Al-Qaeda dan Ikhwanul Muslimin, juga ke ISIS. Nah, Pak Para ini yang mewakili dari sisi JI, barangkali bisa menjelaskan sedikit, menurut Pak Para, apa ada narasi yang paling berbeda dari JI dibandingkan tiga kelompok ini? Kalau tadi Sergio kan menjelaskan kelompok-kelompok seperti Al-Qaeda, ISIS, dan seterusnya itu biasanya narasinya dicirikan sebagai narasi yang kaku dan repetitif. Kalau di JI dan amatan Anda terhadap narasi-narasi kelompok radikal baru-baru ini, apakah ada yang berbeda atau masih sama seperti itu? Silakan, Ustaz.
iya. Terima kasih Pak Khairul Anam. Jadi secara praktik sama saja Pak Anam. Ya, karena sumbernya kan sama, dan semua pergerakan karena sudah berkembang jihad global kan saling mempengaruhi sebetulnya kan. Nah, jadi ketika Al-Qaeda mengadakan evaluasi seperti tadi saya beri contoh eh, dari Syekh Atiyatullah Alibi yang memberikan arahan-arahan terkait amaliat bom bunuh diri misalnya yang bisa menimbulkan korban dari kaum muslimin, korban orang yang tidak bersalah. Nah, itu akhirnya kami pun di sini mengulasnya. Nah, karena mengulasnya ya menulisnya, ya menerbitkannya, ya menyebarkannya, eh, melakukan evaluasi internal. Nah, jadi itu memang akhirnya seperti dirijen ya, jadi seperti konser itu, maka perubahan-perubahan narasi di jihad global akan juga mempengaruhi semua pergerakan yang ada di dunia yang ke arah Salafi jihadis, termasuk di JI. Ya, makanya tadi saya bilang metode ini sebetulnya ya cukup efektif ya ketika dia untuk mendeteksi dini. Tapi memang dengan contoh tadi ternyata bisa juga deteksinya mengandung dua kemungkinan. Ya kan seperti tadi saya katakan, apakah ini kemungkinan untuk ke arah strategi perubahannya atau sebetulnya memang asli moderasi ideologis tadi, bukan moderasi taktis. Karena memang secara kajian ilmiah harus berubah. Nah, itu yang
Iya,
terjadi pada JI. Jadi ini bukan bukan moderasi taktis, tapi memang moderasi secara ideologis.
strategi.
Sehingga kita membubarkan diri, ya. Nah, itu sama. Sebetulnya semua sedang mengevaluasi perjalanan jihad ini. Dan tulisan-tulisannya juga sampai kepada kita dan kita juga mengkajinya. Nah, jadi hampir sama polanya. Jadi memang bisa dibaca dengan teknik Titan tadi bisa di
Ya.
dilaksanakan untuk mendeteksi dini istilahnya. Demikian Pak Khairul Anam.
Terima kasih Ustadz Para. Saya kira itu menjadi kabar baik untuk kita semuanya, Bapak Ibu sekalian, bahwa berdasarkan keterangan dari Ustadz Para ini, kelompok-kelompok radikal teroris juga sudah mulai melakukan evaluasi ya. Temuan dari Pak Sergio tadi yang menyebut ada ternyata hanya 4% dari Al-Quran yang digunakan oleh kelompok radikal teroris itu juga menjadi temuan penting yang mungkin akan menjadi catatan bagi kita dalam melakukan studi-studi selanjutnya. Nah, Bapak dan Ibu, kita sudah di ujung acara. Sebelum saya tutup, barangkali Pak Dr. Altuna ingin memberikan closing remarks atau cukup? Oke, karena tidak direspon Bapak dan Ibu, eh, akhirnya saya mengucapkan mewakili teman-teman di Rumah Wasatya mengucapkan terima kasih banyak untuk kehadirannya. Semoga sesi ini memberi manfaat untuk kita semuanya. Paling tidak ada informasi-informasi baru yang bisa kita olah. Mohon maaf juga jika ada banyak kekurangan termasuk dari hal teknis tadi. Kami sudah berupaya semaksimal mungkin. Terima kasih kepada tim penerjemah dari GC Semarang. Mereka live dari Semarang. Terima kasih banyak untuk bantuannya. Terima kasih kepada Anda semuanya yang sudah bergabung sejak menit awal hingga saat ini. Terus pantau kegiatan-kegiatan kami di Rumah Wasatya. Jika ada di antara Anda yang tadi sempat tertinggal, kegiatan kita hari ini disiarkan dan direkam di YouTube kami di Rumah Wasatya, bisa dicek lagi kapan-kapan. Terima kasih kepada ketiga pembicara, Dr. Syarif Altuna, Mas Wahid Ridwan, dan Ustadz Para Wijayanto. Kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak dan Ibu dipersilakan meninggalkan Zoom. Terima kasih banyak.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.